Gouderix is the infamous Vekoma looping coaster at Parc Asterix. This ride looks amazing, but it famously placed in the bottom spot of both the Mitch Hawker and TPR coaster polls. But I have a confession to make. I not only find Gouderix bearable, but I genuinely enjoy this ride. That is why I think it may be the most underrated coaster in the world. In this video, I will explain why I think this coaster is so overhated, and it should really get more praise. Parc Asterix opened in 1989 with just one major roller coaster in Gouderix, and this was a record-setting coaster at the time. This ride opened as the tallest, fastest, and longest coaster in all of France, but more notably, it tied Shockwave at Six Flags Great America for the most inversions of any roller coaster in the world with 7. Gouderix would hold this record until Dragon Con opened at Port Aventura with 8 in 1995. But the ride still has the most inversions of any coaster in France. Gouderix was a custom Vekoma MK1200, which was a sit-down looping coaster model. These were analogous to Arrow's looping coasters. Vekoma sold several of these in the 1980s and 1990s. These rides were capable of forceful inversions, however, this model suffered from janky and/or rough transitions, and Gouderix was the poster child for this. This ride has been a perennial contender for the world's worst steel coaster, as it earned that dubious distinction in the final Mitch Hawker poll in 2012. More recently, it placed in the bottom 10 of TPR's coaster poll. But is it really that bad? Not for me. So why am I immune to this ride's suffering? I think there are 3 things that need to be considered. First, I'm tall enough that my head clears the top of the over-the-shoulder harness. This means I cannot get any headbanging. This improved a lot of Arrow loopers for me as I got older. If you're on the shorter side, I can totally understand why you may find Gouderix unbearable, because this ride is far from smooth. If you watch my back row POV, you'll see the heads of taller riders jostling around, but note how they are not smacking into anything. For me that's key, but again if you're shorter, you probably will hit your head. Second, I have only ridden Gouderix in the back car. Most coasters tend to be smoother up front, but maybe Gouderix is an exception, because I know people who rode this coaster recently up front and despised it. Third, the park made a series of changes between 2000 and 2013 that made the coaster more bearable. My first rides occurred in 2019 after all of these modifications. I was nervous I just got lucky, but I got similarly pleasant rides in 2023. So what did the park do to improve the experience? The coaster originally opened with Arrow trains, but these were switched to Vekoma trains in 2000. The trains still had similar over-the-shoulder restraints, but the Vekoma trains seemed to track better than Arrow trains, at least on Vekoma loopers. Further changes are made to the trains a decade later. A heavier chassis was added in 2010. Then in 2011, the coaster got different wheels to try and reduce vibrations. While I'm fine with the current trains, I think this coaster would benefit mightily from new trains with vest restraints. This would eliminate the possibility of headbanging for all riders. These trains have worked wonders on other Vekoma loopers, like Blue Hawk at Six Flags Over Georgia, or Hyperspace Mountain at Disneyland Paris. Gouderix also had a lot of structural work in 2013. This includes some modified supports and some retracking. The transitions still aren't perfect, but again, they don't personally cause me pain. If the park want to fix this issue once and for all, they could look into a full retrack like the one Python Efteling got. That coaster is now smooth as glass. The layout is not the issue with Gouderix, just the execution. This would make Gouderix a darn near perfect looping coaster. For all the hate this ride gets, most people seem to agree that it looks fantastic. The coaster originally opened with white track, but was painted yellow in 2009. While I'm not a big fan of the shade of yellow the ride uses, I do love the ride's placement. It's in the back of the park above the water. It is such a pretty location. This coaster's mess of inversions is mesmerizing to watch. It also has a nice entry sign, affixed to some actual coaster track no less. And I also like the theme station. To fit in with the adjacent Viking area, the station was turned into a Viking boat in the 2007 season. Another thing people agree upon is that Gouderix has fantastic operations. Each train holds 28 riders. The trains are comprised of 7 cars, with each car having 2 rows of 2. This ride has 2 trains, but the crew moves fast enough to support 3. They not only avoid stacking, but they regularly have the next train heading up the lift hill before the prior one even hits the final brakes. The crews at Parc Asterix are some of the fastest across the board, but the load procedure at Goudurix is particularly easy. All belongings ride at your feet, much like a Disney coaster, so riders don't need to waste time storing things on the load platform, they just go straight to their seats. Then you have a simple over-the-shoulder harness with no secondary restraint. Goudurix will still generate a queue most days, but it will typically be less than the park's other major coasters. Expect the wait to hover somewhere in the 20 to 30 minute range on average. If you want to avoid the wait altogether, there are 2 ways to do so. First, head here in the last few hours of the day. I've seen this coaster as a complete walk-on the last hour or 2 of the day. The line typically peaks around noon and starts to decrease steadily by the mid-afternoon. Second, purchase a full-automatic skip-the-line pass. Goudurix is included in all tiers, and you can purchase a single shot for €8. And 2 notes if you use this. First, the full-automatic's entrance is a royal pain to find. It is nowhere near the main entrance. It is located on the pathway towards the park entrance exclusive for hotel guests. Second, because it dumps you off in the back half of the station, you will usually be placed in one of the back cars. Some staff members will honor seating requests and let you wait an extra train for specific rows, but not all of them do. Once dispatched, you have a small dip out of the station, roll forwards, and slowly ascend the 118-foot or 36-meter tall lift hill. You face away from the park, heading towards the hotels. At the top, you have a small dip, and then you have a slow turn left. Then you encounter the ride's largest drop by far. This is a straight 11-story tall plunge. It supposedly has a 64-degree angle of descent, but it feels much shallower than that. Maybe it's just because you hit your max angle so quickly. Still, it does give some weak floater airtime if you're in the back car. You then charge through the first 2 inversions, a butterfly. This was a unique double inversion designed specifically for Goudurix and Blue Hawk. It feels like a demented sea serpent. You basically have this weirdly profiled sidewinder, followed by a reverse sidewinder. I find most of this element smooth enough, but the transition out of the second loop is the most jarring on the ride. You will really feel the train shake here. Where this maneuver excels though is in the positive G department. It is extremely forceful. It's not just the half loops in and out of the element, but you also have these tall and compact half corkscrews with a tight valley in between. So there is no reprieve from the positives. And along with all those Gs, you also have 2 shocking head choppers entering and exiting the element. This is probably my favorite part of the ride. Next comes a Batwing. The half loops pile on the positive Gs as well, as the train is yanked through them. The half corkscrews don't track the best though. The jolts cause a little neck chopping for me. Then comes a vertical loop. This is probably the smoothest inversion on the ride. It is fluid, yet forceful, as it dishes out some more positive Gs. Goudurix then climbs upwards. When you level off, you actually get some weak floater airtime in the rear rows, so I imagine it's even better towards the front, and you may get some really good negative Gs up there. This is followed by a sudden turn right. It's fine in the back, but the profiling may cause some abrupt and uncomfortable laterals towards the front of the train. Something similar happened to me on another Vekoma looper and Lupin at Tussenfried. Then comes a double corkscrew. There's a nice near miss with a support into the element. Then the 2 inversions have snap to them. They're a lot better than your average Vekoma or Arrow corkscrew. There is a bit of a pothole exiting the second corkscrew that can jolt you downwards, so just be aware. Goudurix then has an upwards helix. This gives some nice laterals. In the back rows, you are eased into them and they intensify as the element progresses, which keeps them comfortable for me. Again, if you ride up front, maybe they're more jarring because you'll be pushed into the helix, but I can't say from experience. This ends with a brake run, but not the final brake run. But for all intents and purposes, the ride is pretty much over at this point. After coming to a full stop, you slowly dive downwards into the right. You then have some straight track past the ride's queue line. Then you hop upwards into the final brake run. It always feels like the train will valley here, but to my knowledge, it never has. Goodreeks then returns to the station, ending the 3,120 foot or 950 meter long coaster. I have already touched on the smoothness, but what about the pacing? Goodreeks is really good in that department. Once you crest the lift, you have a big drop and 7 inversions in rapid fire succession. There are no trims, no brake runs, nor throwaway elements. It is just one flip after another. Add in how forceful the inversions are, and it's no surprise why this coaster is so intense. So what would I rate Goodreeks? I would give this coaster a 7 out of 10. I genuinely like this coaster, and I think it's a good ride, at least for me. This is a fast-paced and extremely powerful looping coaster. The first 5 inversions in particular stand out, but those last 2 corkscrews are not too shabby either. This ride does have some jolty transitions, no denying that, but they aren't painful for me. If you're shorter, I can totally see how this ride could cause major headbanging and or serious discomfort though. And as I said at the start, I have only ridden this coaster in the back car, so if it is rougher up front, I can't personally attest to that. I think this ride is better than a lot of the Aero Mega Loopers in the US. Goodreeks is far better pacing, more oomph, and honestly, it tracks fairly similarly. So if you find Aero Loopers too rough, you'll probably hate this one too. But I really do not get the hate this coaster receives. Maybe it's just the cool thing to bash on Goodreeks, but I prefer just to ride it, and I ride it multiple times every time I'm at Parc Asterix. This isn't even the roughest ride Parc Asterix. That honor goes to Vol d'Icaire, but that's a story for another day. If Goodreeks ever got vest restraints and or a full retrack, I think this ride would shoot up the rankings of most enthusiasts. If it got these changes, I'd place it ahead of a lot of B&Ms. So those are my thoughts on Goodreeks at Parc Asterix. Let me know if you find this ride enjoyable like me, or if you're one of the people that hate this ride. Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canobie Coaster. Thanks for watching.